Hello guys, thank you so much for coming back to watch another video on my channel. BSAA, an anti-bioterrorism group which was created to counter bioterrorism, to create peace at global level. Now all of a sudden they start using BOWs at the end of Resident Evil Village, and they'll be a major player behind the scenes at the events of Resident Evil 9. Well, how all that happened, let's find out together in this video. And as always, I ask you guys, if you do end up liking the content I've got on my channel, and if you do end up liking this video, do give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. It allows me to make more of these videos for you guys. Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance, also known as BSAA, was first seen in the events of Resident Evil 5, where this organization was behind the takedown of Trycell in Africa, with the help of BSAA agents including Chris and Trevor. Then as the story continued to focus on the events on the global level, all of a sudden we saw this organization get involved in the events of Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8 without much of an explanation. And the same organization which once stood against bioweapons all of a sudden started deploying BOWs in Europe. It just doesn't make sense, does it? And we need to dig deeper into the history to understand how BSAA has become this shady organization. Now, prior to the Raccoon City incident in 1998, a lot of pharmaceutical companies around the world were working under a Federation of Pharmaceutical Companies, which was this council for all of these pharmaceutical corporations, including Umbrella and Trycell. Now, all of these pharmaceutical companies were funding Umbrella according to the documents, and Umbrella began developing biological weaponry for militaries across the world. And it was later revealed that the main goal behind all of this project was to birth a new race of virally enhanced and well-educated superhumans who would advance human civilization for generations to come, with Umbrella's founder ruling through them as gods. Now, Umbrella wasn't the only company working on the background of creating these bioweapons. However, they were also had a major rival company known as the organization, who later merged into Trycell, and this was the same company who hired Ada Wong at Raccoon City incident. Now we can all see that from the start how all of these pharmaceutical companies were shady from the very beginning and working on the background for their own individual benefits. Now the trigger for Umbrella's decline began in May 1998 with a mysterious containment failure at the Arclay laboratory, which later led to Raccoon City incident. Thanks to characters like Chris, Jill, Leon, Claire, etc., who helped expose this organization, and in 2003 Umbrella organization was actually officially seized from the business. However, it was too late, as a lot of bioweapons research was already in the black market to bioterrorist groups, which started to take the opportunity. Now, due to failure to counter this global threat which was going on, this provided these pharmaceutical industries an advantage and formed this anti-terrorist task force known as Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance, also known as BSAA. Originally, this task force was a civilian-based NGO group, and the first members of this group were called Original 11, which included Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine. In its early days, the BSAA collaborated with and supported the Federal Bioterrorism Commission, which is also known as FBC, a US government counter-bioterrorism organization. Now, just to clarify, the Federal Bioterrorism Commission was initially American federal law enforcement agency that was tasked with combating bioterrorism. However, after the Queen Zenobia incident, FBC was disbanded. The BSA took this opportunity to take over the FBC, acquiring both its jurisdiction and many of its members. Now this gave them freedom under UN legislation to work globally wherever they pleased to in order to counter these bioterrorist groups. BSA set their headquarters in Europe and then expanded their branches across the globe. Now at this point, BSAA become the most powerful organisation to operate whatever way they are pleased with massive funding from the background. The funding continued from the same Council of Federation of Pharmaceutical Companies, who were similarly behind the scenes funding Umbrella, and also Trisol was also involved in the funding of this organisation. That means unlimited source of power to work with, and no sanctions, no quality checks to what goes internally at BSAA. Now, after the events of Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6, in 2017, the Baker incident occurred. On October the 5th, a ship tanker exploded and causing the ship to drift into Louisiana Bayou. Now we all know the ship was carrying Evelyn, a BOW, which has been created by the help of a new crime syndicate known by the name of The Connection. The Connection originally worked with Miranda to help her find a way to revive her daughter, due to which Miranda agreed to work with the Connections to create a new mold-type bioweapon. And after a few attempts and few failures, an E-type variant mold was successful, and the purpose of this BOW was to use to mind control, and it would allow it to take over the regions without the use of the more traditional bioweapons. Now BSAA were keeping tabs on the Connections, and they were aware of this new type variant, which was Evelyn. They attempted to capture Evelyn in Munich, but the mission failed and they let Evelyn escape from there, and Evelyn was smuggled out and put on a ship to the US by the Connections with Mia as her caretaker. Then we know that shipwreck caused by a hurricane, and Evelyn ended up infecting the ship crew, led to her escape to Dulvey Mansion. Now at this point, Evelyn still didn't get at the hands of BSAA, instead managed to infect a local family. Now Lucas Baker managed to make a contact with the Connections, who provide him with a serum which loosens Evelyn's influence on him. Now during that time, it also piqued an interest of an organisation goes by the name of Blue Umbrella. Now after the fall of the original Umbrella Corporation, the former company employees reformed a new organisation to undo Umbrella's original work under a supervision from UN with a new name called Blue Umbrella. However, due to restrictions by UN, they weren't allowed to carry out work on their own, so they had to approach BSAA about the Baker incident. And this is where BSAA sent Chris Redfield on this operation named as Operation Lurk in Fear. Now at this point, we are clear that Blue Umbrella is trying to do the right thing and contact BSAA, and the Connection seems to be this crime syndicate who we are up against. However, it still poses a question that why Lucas Baker ended up betraying the Connections. And the most interesting thing we found out that Lucas sent this classified information to another organisation with the interest in this matter, which we never been able to find out who they were. Now the only external organisation who could be interested in this matter was BSAA from the very start, which allowed Connections to make a mistake with the whole ship wreckage. Now after the Baker incident, we have seen Chris become concerned with BSAA's intention, as they end up covering the Baker incident by calling it just a gas leakage, when they could have been honest with the whole situation, as they're supposed to be the main official anti-bioterrorism group to work on a global threats and uncover them. Now moving into Resident Evil Village events. We have found out that Miranda already taken Mia and disguised as Mia initially in the game. Then we found out that Chris is now working independently as a rogue agent and took an elite squad from BSAA and named his own group as Hound Wolf Squad. BSAA become wary of Chris's motivation, and we can read from the Baker incident report that they raise concern of Chris's intention and they don't want him to be involved with Miranda's situation, even though they pretended that they're not aware of who Miranda is and knew that Chris has been critical of BSAA's motivation ever since Baker incident. Now we all know that the information about Ethan and Mia whereabout was provided to Miranda by the Connections, as she was was looking to resurrect her daughter Eva with the help of Rosemary Winter. However, the interesting point which it raises for me is how the connections got all of a sudden aware of Ethan's whereabouts, unless that information was shared by BSAA themselves, who helped them escape Baker incident. Further on in the game, when we enter Heisenberg's factory, we see the board with all the lords, and there is a map with a circle on it labelled as BSAA. It potentially poses another question that Heisenberg might have been contacted by BSAA because he was desperate and looking for an external help to defeat Miranda. I personally also think that BSAA also might have shared some intel on Chris and his Houndwolf squad members, as we can see Heisenberg makes a funny comment about Chris's boulder punching event, which only could have been shared by BSAA.
That boulder punching asshole!
As any incident report at BSAA will be classified and will only be accessible to BSAA members, which shows another side of BSAA to us. I personally think there might be a potential more in Chris's friend group, and we might be able to find out in Resident Evil 9. Now later on, towards the end of Resident Evil Village, we found out that Chris with his own squad is up against Miranda to take her down, but at the same time Chris gets surprised that all of a sudden BSAA makes an appearance. Shockingly, he discovers that BSAA is now using BOW mutants as soldiers to fight against Miranda. Then Chris and his squad manage to destroy the fungal root with the help of Ethan, and then later on in the cutscene we can see that Chris is concerned with BSAA's motives, and he plans his next move to head towards Europe for BSAA's headquarters to find out what's going on inside BSAA.
Pick up the rest of the squad. Plot a course for BSAA Europe HQ.
Now going into Resident Evil 9, we are already aware that BSAA has played an integral role from the background. The same group has been involved in Resident Evil 7 to Resident Evil 8, but we still don't know much about them, what they've been doing in the background. A group which once stood against BOWs is now all of a sudden using BOWs. It doesn't make sense. Why BSAA covered up their failures by using lies? Even if you look at the concept art for the BSAA soldier that can be unlocked in Resident Evil 8, it states that BSAA are now a rotten and ruined organization who are using soldiers created with a brand new technology. So what is that new technology they're using? These are the questions which we all have and we all know will be answered in Resident Evil 9. The massive focus in Resident Evil 9 is going to be on BSAA, which it has been alluded towards the end of Resident Evil Village. BSAA has been backed by UN and also getting independent funds from these pharmaceutical companies who helped them create this BSAA group in the first place. Now Blue Umbrella looks suspicious, but I don't think they will be involved with BSAA's corruption, even though they consist of previous Umbrella's former members, but I think there is far too much surveillance on them from the outside due to the previous background with their former company. On the other hand, we can see the connection has been represented as this big bad crime syndicate. However, we know very little of this organization. And the only thing we know that they have operated from Europe, so it could be a rogue group from BSAA originally, which BSAA is now trying to undo their mistakes. BSAA is very secretive and has no supervision as to what is going on internally. I do believe they have been compromised internally, and they even might now be working with the connection at this stage, as they are clearly okay to use bioweapons to take care of situations. However, I personally think BSAA will be the main primary antagonist of Resident Evil 9, and truth will be revealed soon enough with the next game. I also want Capcom to do another Revelations title, which can focus on the events at BSAA behind the scenes between Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8. However, I don't think Capcom will make that. So what do you guys think about BSAA's motivation? Do you think they will be the main antagonist for the next upcoming Resident Evil title? Please do let me know your thoughts and opinion in the comment section down below in this video. And that's it for the video, guys. I'll thank you if you have watched the whole video, and I'll catch you again with another video on my channel. Until then, look after yourself. Have a good one.